I think our coaching staff is incredible with that specifically. The main key is like we make practice so hard that a game like this can't ever get too big. The pressure we get, especially the offensive guys from our defensemen in practice, is incredible. So you're always going to be prepared for a big game like this.
I think I just want to tack on that. I mean, we have the best coaching staff in the country, and it's not even close. And the things they do for us, I've told them multiple times. I don't even understand it. When they make a game plan, I'll be in the office listening to them talk. I have no idea what's going on, but it's absolutely incredible, and every guy in this team could be more grateful for what they do for us.
Anything, Matt?
Using your reset, which is one thing our coach really taught us, no matter how bad or how good the play was, it's just starting from square one and starting from scratch.
Just getting the ball off the carpet and running in transition.
Here comes the great Ben Reeves, a save by Jacob Stover, but Reeves is there for the rebound and the goal. 2 early goals for Reeves, and Yale off to the fast start.
Ben Reeves is so dangerous, and Foster Huggins has had an amazing season. Talked about him in the open in terms of his ability to take the ball away. From a size standpoint, Quint, though, this is a tall task for the All-American.
Danigelis, Sessa, another ball on the turf. Huggins could not pick it clean. Huggins bothered by Sessa, loose ball. Finally, Huggins comes away.
He needs help. He needs help.
He's doubled.
Where's his teammates?
Out of bounds, knocked out by Huggins.
Blood in the streets in the town of New Haven. Blood stains the roofs.
So Billy had a player who went 2 for 11 and played 38 minutes. And this player got totally down on himself when he wasn't playing good. So 2 for 11 is not very good. So Billy walked in and he asked the player, how many shots did you miss last night? This was the next day. The player says 9. How long does it take for you to shoot a shot? The player was a little confused. He said about a second. How many minutes did you play? The player says 38. So let me get this straight. You allowed 9 seconds to affect the rest of the 37 minutes and 51 seconds you played. And that was all he had to say. And I think that that would be a way that you confront the truth in a creative way that just grabs.
Different sports, but when you're playing a sport with one ball, okay, outside in basketball, the point guard, who probably has the ball in his hands between 7 to 10% of his minutes, and the rest of the players have the ball less than 5% of their minutes being played. The game basketball, about 95% of the time, is played without the ball in your hands. And it's another thing, and I talk about it from a societal challenge, is because everything on the headlines and newspapers is who the leading scorer was, or how many points did this guy score, that guy score, what happens is players play for that and just get into that. And I get there's recognition, there's notoriety, there's those kind of things, but the reality is, and the truth is, that they're playing the game 95% of the time without the ball in their hand. And I think a lot of times players play their 95% hoping to get it back.
Right on the rise and follow with me. Get about to break the day. She came in and she drove away. Sunlight coming to settle, you got no hope. You just gotta poke around.
Of celebration and warmth. I'll give you the rest of it after this play. 4th down and 6, and Wright fumbles, picked up by Leon Lett. Can he go all the way? It's a 60-yard run. He's being chased by Beebe. What's out? Did he get across? No, they are not. That's going to be a touchback to Buffalo. There's no call yet, though. He has not marked touchdown. It was knocked out of his hands and went out of bounds in the end zone, which would give it to Buffalo at the 20. And look at Lett. If they call that a no touchdown, he's going to dig a hole and crawl out of this place from there.
He's going to need a big hole. They have not made the call yet. Was it knocked out of his hand before? There's Leon.
He celebrated too soon.
No, that's Jeffco. He's the guy who made the hit. Leon Lett's still lying in the end zone.
Now he's on his feet. And the call by hand
The play has been ruled as a fumble in the field of play. The fumble went forward through the end zone and out of the end zone, creating a touchback. Buffalo's ball, 1st and 10.
Leon Lett would have scored, but he slowed down to celebrate at the 5-yard line, and when he did, Don Beebe, hustling, stripped it away.
Beebe is the fastest Buffalo Bill.
Here's the thing that people do not want to admit. The Pistons in 1989 and 1990 were the best team in basketball. I don't care how physical they were, how mean they were the best team.
This was a very physical basketball team. When they came onto the court, they were intent on winning.
Up to Billy, he'll square up and gun left wing. It goes!
They were hard-working, took absolutely no prisoners, really didn't care who they upset, pissed off, whatever.
But the biggest problem was Detroit Pistons. They kicked our ass.
I think a lot of times teams would get on the court and feel defeated before the game even started because they went, oh my God, if something bad happens, they're just going to kick our you-know-what.
And most teams can't play that way. So when they tried to play that way, they were already beat.
We'd shut teams down, period.
And when it was a man down, team got up.
I mean, the name just kind of came along with it, the bad boy name, and then we just rolled with it.
We want that piece of court. We want your gym. We want everybody in your gym. We don't want to hear any noise in your gym because it's our gym tonight.
Baseline right, pump fake on Kite, back outside to Isaiah, top side, Lambier, guns over, Parrish got it. Great slap away by Vinny. Hustles for the ball in midcourt, driving on Shaw, great layoff to Rodman. Wheeling across the lane, cuts back toward the baseline, missed close in, tapped by Parrish, no. And Parrish just swung on Lambier. And
Larry Bird hated the Pistons and hated the Bad Boys. And once you got Larry Bird to respond to you, then, you know, now you were legitimate. Because Larry Bird just came out and he played, and everybody was beneath him. He was the best player in the world in his mind. And, you know, Detroit, it was the Detroit Pistons. But he started to respond to the Pistons. The Celtics were, I don't know if they were America's team, but it seemed like they were. And so now you were messing with the fabric of American basketball by agitating the Boston Celtics.
And there is a silence knocked down by Lambier, and Bird just smacked him.
Respected as a basketball team. People respect our talents and they respect how hard we work now. And, you know, there's a certain mindset being created now by the Detroit Pistons. That people look at Detroit and say, this is how this team plays. If you're going to beat this team, you're going to have to beat them at their style of game.
The Bad Boys were more of a mental thing than a physical thing. Yes, we were a physical basketball team, but we were a team that asked for no mercy nor gave any mercy. And we were kind of arrogant about how we did business. And we were single focused to win the championship.
Nobody remembers the mental part of the game. And that's how the Pistons won. They got inside of your head. You didn't know whether it was safe to drive the lane or not, because you were going to get dotted. And I think other teams were scared. And I think sometimes the Pistons went out into the court, they already knew they were going to win.
88-89 season, it was going to be their year, and 89 was going to be their championship year. So I think when the playoffs began and when the finals began, the Pistons thought, this is our time. We are the best team in basketball.
Blood in the streets on the river of sadness. Blood in the streets, it's up to my. Just gotta poke around.
All the way back at the face-off to show the context of the substitution mistake that results in this fast break. When Duke Fogo Brendan Fowler wins the face-off, Note that Bill Connors is the closest defender to the box. That will become very important in a minute. Once he gets the ball down to the attack, Fowler can turn and sub out no matter what happens because the Syracuse Fogo will follow him to avoid getting stuck playing defense. LSM Luke Dupree and short stick defensive midfielder Greg DeLuca won't take Syracuse players with them when they sub out because the Syracuse D-mids are staying on to play defense. DeLuca, with his shorty, is a bigger offensive threat, so he hangs back to occupy the Syracuse D rather than leave the attack all alone and ends up getting open for a shot. Syracuse's Matt Pratt and Duke's David Lawson have come onto the field when the Fogos sub off. If you look closely, you can barely make out the white shoes that we will later see probably belong to Duke offensive midfielder Jake Tripucka. Syracuse goalie Dominic Lemolinera picks up the ground ball and starts transition with an outlet pass to Pratt, who heads upfield. Duke's Josh Dion is not going to run down the field with Pratt because he's an attackman. Instead, he's going to run through the box to let a D-midi come onto the field. From this angle, we can see 7 Duke players on the field. 3 Duke midfielders are all in good positions to defend the 3 Syracuse midfielders. DeLuca is well behind the play, but he's still far ahead of Syracuse midfielder Steve Ianzito. Lawson has picked up Syracuse LSM Matt Harris, and Dupree has picked up Pratt, who has the ball. Duke's problem is in the back, where they only have 2 close defenders on the field to guard the 3 Syracuse attackmen. Duke was in the process of trying to sub from the midfield line by stepping close defenseman Bill Connors off the field, so that Dupree would just have to cross to the other side of the midfield line in order to allow Jake Tripucka to come on. During the ground ball scrum, Tripucka must have come back off the field, but in the confusion, Connors never came back on. We see the confirmation that Duke has been playing one man short as Dion heads off because 2 Duke players come onto the field. Connors is going to head straight back, while a short stick defensive midfielder comes on for Dion to hold them onside. Lawson is coming off with the Syracuse LSM, at which point the defensive midfielder will run back to defense, while Dion comes back onto the offensive half of the field. As Dupree comes back to pick up Pratt, I don't think he realizes there are only 2 close defensemen behind him. He's looking upfield and is probably expecting Connors to come out of the box behind him. This camera also gives us a good look at the box and the 4 Duke players in it. With 3 midfielders behind him in the box, Connors needs to be out on the field. While this specific kind of mistake is rare, the play is still worth discussing because it's functionally the same as if Dupree had been the close defenseman coming up off of Syracuse attackman Derek Maltz instead of an LSM dropping back. When Maltz catches the ball, Dupree is going to turn and try to recover. Maltz wants to avoid letting Dupree cover him, so he's going to attack the goal to force Henry Lobb to step up and play him. If Dupree hadn't been out so far, he probably would have been able to get back to cover Maltz himself instead of forcing Lobb to slide. Once Lobb has to slide to Maltz, the best option would be for Dupree to turn and try to get over to Dylan Donahue in order to free up Chris Hipps to rotate over to Kevin Rice. However, when Dupree heads towards Maltz and ends up next to him with Lobb, he's too far away to be able to get over to Donahue in time. And when Hipps is forced to commit to Rice, it creates an easy opportunity for Donahue, who puts the ball past Duke.
Watch Yale get 3 backups in the 4th quarter of the quarterfinals.
That must have been a wet slide. It took you a little further.
And a line drive shot drops. And because of Villanova's shooting, coach, you're going to get one-on-one matchups down there in the block.
Look at this shot. The next time, I guarantee you, he gets the ball in the perimeter, does a pump fake, and he's going to draw some kind of contact or get open.
And Miami has its biggest deficit of the tournament, down 10.
The kid is amazing. There's that big length by Bridges.
Up a little bit, starting with a 1-2-2. Take some time off the clock, Vern, here, and also look for a little deflection.
Tough pass by.
First half from the Garden.
And a steal. You can't give him any space. As Marquette throws it. Here comes that 3-quarter court pressure by Villanova. Davis, baseline, Makura.
Cheated Butte, something off to D. Villanova. Sound play by Nebraska. Look to post up. Not available.
I don't think I existed at that time, Coach.
I think that Chefu coming out of the lineup is a death blow to the Wildcats. It's not, because this is
for Villanova.
Bridges, Tom, struggling from beyond.
3:55, and we are just about halfway through the second half. Excellent.
Out of extra, Villanova came in.
Because it's midnight and the dark of the moon decides. Make the darkest from your eyes. Make the darkest from your eyes. Make the darkest from your eyes. Make the darkest from.
So in versus walking in with a body language that I can't make a shot today, I can't believe this, and looking for, you have no toughness. You have no toughness. Tough player deals with what's there and responds to it. So I'm talking a lot about body language, because body language screams. It screams for everybody to see. Head down, this. And in most cases, it's an immaturity thing, but the second part of it is a little lack of toughness, mental toughness, that I'm not getting broken down because I missed a couple shots, or I fumbled a ball, or I missed a free throw. I don't care. I'm tough. I didn't think I had to teach them this, but I pulled the toughness sheet and we read what toughness is. And as I read them to them, are we that? No. Are we this? No. Are we that? No. Are we this? No. Do we talk? No. And so my point to them is how we think has to change if you want how you're playing to change, how you approach this stuff.
Recruiting kids that are like really upbeat and loving life and love the game and have this tremendous appreciation for when their teammates do something well, that's hard. That's hard. It's really hard. We put a huge premium on body language. And if your body language is bad, you will never get in the game. Ever. I don't care how good you are. If somebody says, well, you just benched Stewie for 35 minutes in the Memphis game a couple years ago. Yeah, I did. Oh, that was to motivate her for the South Carolina game the following Monday. No, it wasn't. Stewie was acting like a 12-year-old. And they're allowed to get away with just whatever. And they're always thinking about themselves. Me, 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 me. I didn't score, so why should I be happy? I'm not getting enough minutes. Why should I be happy? That's the world that we live in today, unfortunately. And kids check the scoreboard sometimes because they're going to get yelled at by their parents if they don't score enough points. Don't get me started. So when I look at my team, they know this. When I watch game film, I'm checking what's going on the bench. And if somebody's asleep over there, somebody doesn't care, somebody's not engaged in the game, they will never get in the game. Ever.
Why should you think that we had any chance? In fact, we got in the locker room and all Bill could talk about was, we expected him just to go off. But he basically said, hey, look, I can't tell you anything you don't already know. You're embarrassing yourself. And try to make this respectable.
The thing that gave me some hope was the fact that, that when we went toward our dressing room at the end of the half, our players ran as a group. So you could sense it as you went toward the dressing room that we were not a beaten team.
Joe Montana, legend.
Back to throw Montana. He's being rushed. Look out. He throws. He has Solomon open at the 5. Breaks the tackle. Touchdown 49ers.
It's been a dandy, and the second half has been all San Francisco. 28 unanswered points.
Translates to the pros. This guy is magic.
It is long enough. It is good. The greatest comeback the 49ers have made.
Ryan hoped to knock out the 37-year-old Montana, who appeared to be on his last legs.
He had missed all but half a game of 2 seasons with an elbow injury. Throwing elbow. People didn't know if Joe Montana was still going to be Joe Montana.
Joe Montana, stop it, hit as it goes, a wobbly pass, it's intercepted. Yeah! The backpedal sets, punt fakes, there's a line drive down the middle into the end zone, touchdown!
The pass, Joe Montana, looks right, arches a pass into the end zone, a backpedaling, leaping catch, touchdown!
In his career, Joe Montana has been the come-from-behind quarterback for Notre Dame.
The whole country didn't know, really, about the legend of Joe Montana.
Legend began on the frozen tundra of Dallas, Texas.
Montana's rolling and looking and keeping, and Montana lowered the shoulder and got in for the touchdown.
Been the worst ice storm that we've had here in the last 30 or 40 years.
I was behind the Notre Dame bench a moment ago, talked to Joe Montana. He says he has never been this cold during a football game in his life.
I challenge him to watch the clips of that game and not go, ooh, cold. Even if you're in Miami or Palm Beach watching Scottsdale, you put that on the DVD and you're watching, you got to go, ooh.
Montana's 23-point fourth quarter comeback outside in those frigid conditions was impressive. But the reason this game made our list has more to do with the temperature inside Joe's body.
Early in the game, I would come off the field and I'd run right to the heater and go back into the field, right to the heater. I ended up getting my temperature down to like 96. They kept me in the locker room, and they had chicken soup there to keep everybody warm at halftime, so they just kept feeding it to me to get my temperature back up.
Joe Montana did not come out for the second half. The team physicians just told me he has the chills. His body temperature is below normal. They're giving him warm fluids, and he may be back before the end of the game. He said it's kind of like the start of the flu.
Nobody thought he was going to play. Went out on him. Dominated the Irish. And everybody thought they were dead and buried, except Joe Montana.
About the chicken soup and how cold it was and everything else wasn't half as good as just sitting there watching the game in person.
Montana has sparked the surge of Notre Dame here in the closing moments.
A 23-point comeback in the final 8 minutes, that alone, that's astonishing. That he did it while he was sick, that's legendary. And that's a lot like the Jordan 1997 Game 5 against the Jazz, where he had the flu and dominated in the finals.
It's all come down to this. 2 seconds left to play. Houston 34, Notre Dame 28. Montana going, and it's a touchdown. And Montana has
mythology. They do some heroic feat that lets people know that they are on the way.
And then the Bengals score late, and all of a sudden, whoa. The 49ers are going to lose the Super Bowl.
They got the ball, and they had to go 70, 80 yards, whatever it was. And Montana's in the huddle of the Super Bowl, and he's looking around in the crowd. And, hey, look, there's John Candy. John Candy's here at the Super Bowl. And check it out, guys. He just had a calming presence about him and calmed everybody down in that huddle, and the players believed in him.
Don't make it bigger than it is. It's football.
This guy is so cool.
The second tackle.
I think in his mind, it was just, hey, this is what I do. Everybody else was going crazy. Like, this is unbelievable. This is the best drive ever.
At the 10-yard line, 39 seconds remaining. Back to throw Montana. Stepped up throws.
In the first half, Montana was sacked 6 times.
Pummeled over and over.
Chased again, caught and
Things were so bad that 49ers offensive line coach Bob McKittrick went to Joe Montana at halftime and apologized.
Telling Joe Montana, our fine china, let's take a back out of the backfield and run a spread offense so they can kill him even more. But what Holmgren knew is that not only is Montana tough enough to stay in, but if you give him a little bit more space, he might pick you apart.
Second and 23.
Taylor, when you're playing with Montana, you know something great is going to happen.
I know there was a few times in the huddle where he told those guys they better stink and block because we're not out of this thing.
Hey, man, we're on the road. We're down big. Chalk this one up to an L. Let's go home. Go win the West. Don't worry about it. No, by McKittrick saying that to Montana at halftime, and by Montana kind of coming out and doing what he did, showed that incredible resolve and the physical toughness.
And they run a play action. You see Jerry Rice going deep, and you knew this is the I'm Joe Montana and you're not play.
Montana to throw.
Players were far physically tougher than they got credit for. In that game, Joe showed it in its finest fashion.
It's number one. Just because of the beating he took.
The outcome of a Super Bowl berth hangs in the balance.
Gotta be number one.
Look at Montana. And why not? He went 90 yards.
It has to be number one, even though it wasn't his group.
Montana setting up to throw deep. Throws it high. Down in the corner. Emerson rolls.
What is often forgotten about our #1 Montana game is that Joe's career masterpiece was clearly a work that could only be appreciated after viewing its final act.
It certainly wasn't his best game. He threw 3 picks. They turned it over 6 times.
We fumbled the ball. We had interceptions. We had sacks. It wasn't really pretty, except for that last drive.
And they marked the ball down at the San Francisco 11. That's how far they have to go to win.
Well, at that point, Montana had done the Saints comeback. He'd done the chicken soup game, but this is the Dallas Cowboys. They knocked the 49ers out of the playoffs in 70, 71, and 72. Can Joe Montana actually drive them all the way down? It's 3rd and 3 from the 6. San Francisco has never won a championship in professional sports.
58 seconds left.
We're going to call a sprint option. He's going to break up and break into the corner. Okay, you got it? Dwight will clear.
Montana lines up at the 5. And on 3rd down and 3, he rolls right looking to throw. He throws into the end zone.
As a 49er fan growing up, you're thinking, just get rid of the ball. Just give us one more play. He releases the ball, and it's just, oh, thank you. We have one more chance. And then a blur. Shouldn't be there.
Surrounding that stuff, did Dwight know that pass was going there? Was he throwing it away?
No matter what anybody says, if you talk to all the Cowboy players, they will tell you he was throwing that ball away.
If you don't get what you want, you'll just simply throw the ball away.
It sure looked from the sideline like he was just getting rid of the ball because they were coming.
Sorry, Dallas Cowboy fans, he wasn't throwing the ball away. He was throwing the ball where only Dwight was going to go up and get it.
Here's Montana finally throwing the ball away. Clark makes a leaping catch.
No, they practiced the play. They'll tell you.
We had practiced this play so many times. I knew exactly what Joe was trying to do. When we practiced it, Joe would always throw it either too low or, way over my head. But in the game that sends you to the Super Bowl, he puts it in the exact spot where it has to be.
His teams always believed that they were playing for the group goal. And he did it within his system.
Whether it's people huddling at the free throw line or the simple things of pointing at a guy who makes a good pass for you, run it.
We had a system where all 5 guys would touch the ball on offense before you would start to go. A lot of systems is just catch and go. That's really not basketball. He taught us a lot of little small things.
Here comes the 10-man ride. You can hear it from the sideline.
The cage is open.
It's a 3-4-3 alignment with an empty net.
How about Pat Spencer? And now here comes Loyola.